Okay, so today we're going to talk about social stratification, and we've got some pictures here to kind of represent what social stratification is, and we'll get to all of these ideas and concepts before we're done. But we first should probably talk about exactly what it is. So, social stratification, the actual definition, it comes from geology, and it's a system that ranks people in a hierarchy. And I say it comes from geology not because they're concerned about people, but because they're concerned about rock. And so if you look at the side of a mountain, as in this picture here, you'll often see that different layers of rock, when you've got the side of the mountain cut away to where you can see the layers that have built up over the eons, depending on what the rocks were actually formed by, they form these different layers. And so there'll be like a layer of limestone, a layer of granite, or whatever, depending on the conditions at the time. And geologists talk about these as strata. So you'll have a strata of one kind of rock and then another strata of another kind. And overall, this kind of layered approach to the side of a mountain is called stratification. And in sociology, we say that society is very much like that rock, and that we can look at the layers that form in the people that make up society into different classes or different stratification components that make up our society. So that's where it comes from looking at rocks, but we're applying it to layers of people in society. Okay, we can base this stratification on lots of different things like money, power, prestige, income and wealth, which, by the way, are not the same thing. Your book talks about this a bit, but income is basically money that you bring in through work, whereas wealth is money that is your total net worth that can be inherited or whatever. And you can have a lot of wealth with a very low income, or vice versa. If you inherited a lot of money from your family, for instance, you could be very wealthy without ever working a day in your life, having no income whatsoever. And you could work every day of your life and have an income that's high, but if you don't end up accumulating a lot of money, if you spend all that you have, you don't have a lot of wealth. And so there's different ways that we can put people into layers through money or power or prestige. Okay, and I've got pictures here to kind of illustrate this. This one has to do with power. So this teacher has power over this child, and I don't know if you've ever thought about what the actual term power means, but it really is talking about the ability to get somebody else to do what you want them to, even if they don't want to do it. In other words, you can get someone else to do what your will is rather than their own. That's power, if you can get other people to do things. And you think about the people that you have power over, or the people that have power over you. Lots of people have power over you. The government, your boss, sometimes your teacher, maybe your parents, maybe your spouse. People who can get you to do things even that you don't want to do. And that's really what power is. Prestige is much harder to define because prestige is sort of your overall position in society based on the job that you hold, how much money you make, what your family name is, what your level of education is, where you went to school. All of these things that kind of determine how others rank you in society. That's what's meant by your prestige. So there's two kinds of systems when we talk about stratification that are predominant in the world. The first is called a caste system, and this is based on ascribed characteristics, those characteristics that you're born with that there's nothing you can do about. Who you're born to, what family you're born into, what the color of your skin is, what religion your family is. If you're in a system that you're simply born into a particular caste, a particular level in society, based on these ascribed characteristics, then usually there's nothing you can do about it. You're going to be in that caste for the rest of your life. A really good example of this is the royal family in England. If you're born into royalty, you're royal. If you're not, you're not. You can't aspire to become queen. You have to be born into the royal family and be next in line for that. There's nothing you can do about it. Another good example of a caste system is the Hindu caste systems in places like India, where based on the religion and the idea of reincarnation, you're born into your place in society, and there's nothing you can do about it. You can never hope to move up or down until the day you die. That's a caste system. We also have what's called class systems, and these are similar to what we have in the United States, where you're born into a particular class based on your family's position or your parents' position, but you can move up or down in that system based on your own achievements. A class system is based on ascribed characteristics, but you can actually achieve things over time to move up or down in that system. So that's a difference from caste, where you have no hope of ever moving up and down. Okay, so looking at what the different social theorists say about stratification and why it exists and why we have it, the functionalists point out that stratification is actually good for society in a way, because if we all had equal things, there would be no momentum, or no, that's not what I mean. There'd be no motivation for people who are lower in the system to want to move up. So let's say we have someone who's born into the working class, and they're very talented, they're very smart, they're very skilled at politics or whatever, and they want to grow up to be president. Well, if we didn't have the upper classes as something for these people to aspire to, if we didn't have that money out there that they need to get, then maybe they never even bother to try to get out of the class that they're born into. I put Bill Clinton here, and that's his boyhood home there beside him, to illustrate. He was born into a working class, single-parent family, and was able to work his way up to be president of the United States and in the very upper reaches of society. And functionalists say that that kind of thing is possible in our society because we actually make it worth people's while, who are talented and skilled in some way, to move up in the system. Also, I put a picture of a doctor over here to illustrate another thing they say, which is it's hard to move up in the system. It takes a lot of hard work. And if we want someone, if we have certain jobs in society that are particularly important, like say a heart surgeon, we have to pay those people a lot of money in order to attract the very best individuals in society to take those jobs. If you don't, then you're going to end up with, whoever happens to fall into that job, and do you really want that person performing heart surgery on you? No, you want the person who's the very best. You want the person who made A's all the way through medical school. And the only way that you can make that 8 years of medical school worthwhile to someone and put them through the torture that is having to go to that much school after college is if you make it worth their while and pay them a lot of money and give them a lot of power and prestige when they get there. So the function of stratification is to encourage the very most talented and best suited individuals in society to take those very best and most important jobs. On the other hand, the conflict theorists say, no, that's a bunch of bull. Actually, there's a lot of problems with this system. They talk about the excesses of capitalist society, and they say, well, yeah, maybe we do need to pay a little bit more to encourage the very best people to take those best jobs, but do we really need to pay them billions of dollars to take jobs like being the CEO of a company? This yacht, for instance, is owned by a man named Larry Ellison, who is the CEO and founder of a company called Oracle that makes databases. And he is worth billions of dollars. I think he's worth around $25 billion, and he's the fourth richest man in the United States. What are we paying him for? Well, producing software. And so do we really need to pay our CEOs $25 billion as opposed to the people that are working for him who are making a tiny percentage of that in order to make that a worthwhile thing that we want to, make it attractive to people who are very talented, who could take jobs like that? Wouldn't he be happy with just $1 million instead of $30 billion? And so, according to a conflict theorist, that's serious excess. And it leads to a lot of exploitation of the workers. It leads to the workers themselves feeling alienated, like they're not invested in the system. And it's a problem, according to conflict theorists.